Hey everybody, Jordan here, Lone Oak Survival. So today's little video topic, as you guys can tell, is the Kukri series. We're going to talk about the Kukri. Is it a good option to replace your belt knife and your camp axe? Does it have validity doing such a thing? Is it going to hold up in bushcraft survival? Or are these Kukris not as cracked as people make them out to be? So that's kind of my question. I want to discover this. I want to show you guys. In this series, we're going to do basic kind of camp setup, survival stuff. We're going to craft some trap components. Going to do some more bushcrafty stuff with it, from fire making to shelter building to gathering food, all this fun stuff, guys. So we're gonna try this out. What I'm rocking currently in my kit is the Scorpion XL by Pathfinder's Knife Shop. Really nice knife, good leather sheath. Really love it. And then we also have my camp axe, which you guys have seen in so many of my videos. Just simply a Youth Boys axe handle. It's got a 20-inch measurement device in the back right here that I made myself. A little hatchet head that's roughly about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, somewhere around there. Got that from Antique Shop, so I don't know exactly where it's from, who made it. And then also, I have my Fiskars folding saw. This thing's been serving me for like 4 or 5 years now, and has yet to die. So, you know, for 20 bucks, well spent time. So, the Kukri itself, what are we talking about? Well, this is the same Kukri that was in the Hatchet versus Kukri video that I made 3 years ago. So this Kukri itself I've actually had for 4 years. I haven't really honestly used it for much bushcrafting and survival stuff. I've mostly used this to help clear out thorn bushes, more saplings, basically just land clearing, really. On that, I haven't really ever used this per se. So, little specs of the whole thing. We'll get to the sheath in just a minute because that's actually a good point. This is a Kukri from X-Grook Knife House. So hopefully you guys can see that in the morning here. Maybe not. It is from Nepal. Here you guys go. The blade itself, the cutting edge, is 11 inches. So it's kind of nice. It's high carbon steel. It's 5160 high carbon steel to be exact. It's got a 5-inch rosewood handle here with a nice little finger groove. It's got 3 rivets in here. It is actually a rat ting right there, so that's not too bad. All in all, I actually really like this knife and enjoy it. I actually do take it out and use it, you guys can see. I do try to keep it clean, but with all the sap on it and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to do. But 2 or 3 things right off the bat that I'd rather modify this, and this is their Afghan model if you guys are looking for it. I don't know how much it costs nowadays. When I bought it, it was $55 on sale. I believe the market price was $110, $115, somewhere around there. I went back on Amazon to kind of find it, to throw a picture up for you guys. I couldn't find it, so I don't know if this company went out of business, they changed their name, no idea, but it is what it is, right? So modifications to this. First things first, I would actually like to flatten out the back here, just this little bend or point right here, to actual flat 90-degree spine. That way you have a nice flat 90-degree spine that's sharp to hit your ferrocene rod with. There's a small little bump. Hope you guys can see it. Small little bump right here that makes it slightly roundish, so it doesn't really hit the ferrocene rod very well. Granted, you can cock it forward a bit and it does a better job, but so the other thing is this little horn, this little metal horn here. I hate this thing. I don't know why they put it on there. Kind of rhetorical. I do know why. So when your hand slips, it hits this, but man, does that hurt. It's kind of sharp and I don't like it. So I'm going to kind of cut that off with a hacksaw or Dremel tool, being mindful of the temper of the steel. But other than that, that's kind of really what I'd really change about it. I really like the finger groove, though, because it's actually nice for when you're doing shavings or you're trying to do feather sticks, or if you need more control for self-defense purposes or whatever you're going to do, you just need more control with the blade itself. In general, I will cut down trees like this as well, because it just kind of helps your hand from sliding forward or backwards. Or sometimes I'll just hang on here like this. Either grip, I'll use the lanyard to help me, just in case this does slip. I can push it away from my body with my arm, and it's just going to dangle there so I can fly off, hit somebody or something, right? So that's the actual knife itself. The sheath itself is actually rather cheap, and I think it's kind of why they could get away with selling it so cheap as well. It has some kind of nylon material. I don't know exactly what kind it is or what kind of rating it is. I was out in light rain with this. This nylon material is not water resistant at all. The wood inside, you could feel, was kind of squishy. Not good. However, I just let it dry out naturally. I didn't touch it or anything like that, and it still works, so it's not bad. As you guys can see, the little cheap stitching that it came with fell apart literally during the Kukri versus hatchet video. I was swinging the hatchet, the Kukri was in here, and it just popped off. That's what happened there, and I was like, well, that's cool. So it's held on by Gorilla Glue, and it's got some El Cheapo suede leather belt loop thing going on for the remainder of the sheath there. I lost the two smaller knives. I don't know what they're called, forgive me. But I did replace it with a small ferrocene rod that I had as an extra. I just threw in my Kukri just because. And a pocket knife sharpener that's a diamond rod. I have not used this in my Kukri yet. I like to use an actual puck whetstone. However, I was going to show you guys, but I left it at the house. However, if I was out in the field and I had nothing else to use, I'd probably use this if I had to. The reason being, up here in my forest, I have not seen one rock anywhere, which is really bewildering to me, but it's true. So that's the Kukri itself. The only other thing I can say is that it weighs 1.78 pounds, so it's a little bulky. We're going to get into the pros and cons here, guys, with the whole setup. So, moving on to that. Check my notes here, make sure I'm not leaving anything out. Okay. Pros and cons of the thing, right? So we're going to start with the cons, right? Weight for one tool. Okay. 1.78 pounds. Almost 2 pounds for one tool. Granted, we're technically replacing two tools. Now, the other thing is it's awkward. It's awkward to carry. I mean, you can do the belt carry. You can do the lanyard carry. It's just kind of weird to me. And again, I'm not used to carrying it a lot. I mean, again, I just used it for land clearing. That's all I'd use it for. I'm sure if you carried on your belt and maybe had like the little loop down here on the sheath, if I can get that exposed, has one of those little loops right there. It'd probably work if you strapped it to your leg. It'd be more secure, nice and tight. Just not my thing. I don't like having things strapped to my legs, but that's just me. It's an intermediate option, and that's true. Okay, so this Kukri is not going to do as nice of a job chopping down a tree as my axe. It's never going to do as nice a job of pretty much anything knife-wise, like my Pathfinder knife, or my homemade knife I made in the backyard, or my Bush One by Jeff White, or my Buck 119, whatever. You guys get the point. It's, to me, never going to do as good of a job. So that's kind of why we're also exploring this as well, to kind of settle this dispute, kind of prove, at least from my end, hey, this is my experience. Because there's a lot of videos on YouTube telling you how great the Kukri is, but not a lot of videos showing you the actual results of using Kukri in bushcraft situations. Granted, there are a few, but not very many. So, field replacement. That's true. That is something you got to think about. Field replacement, right? So, if my handle on my axe breaks, I can replace this. Now, my knife and the Kukri, obviously, they both have wood handles. I can actually carve this, whatnot. It's not too hard to replace. Also, the thing is, too, if you carry the Kukri for your knife and your hatchet, and say catastrophically it's way too cold for the metal, it's not taking the abuse, it breaks, right? Okay, now you're screwed. That's actually happened to me with an S-Wing axe of mine that I had years ago. It was like -20 out, splitting wood, and being young and dumb at the time, I picked my axe up to drop it on the log with the log on top, and just kind of the head like this, and it broke the neck of the actual S-Wing axe, excuse me. So that's something to kind of at least consider and keep in the back of your mind. These are tools. They can break under the right conditions. So if you don't have an extra knife on hand, not a good situation. So there's that. Now let's talk about the pros. Weight factor. You are replacing two tools for one. So my axe, my knife, and my saw, and granted it wasn't the Scorpion XL, it was actually my homemade knife, which is a bit heavier than the Scorpion XL. But either way, all three of those tools together weighed 3 pounds and 5 ounces. Again, the Kukri by itself weighs 1.78 pounds, but I'm not doing the one tool option ever with the Kukri. I would actually pair it with the Fiskars folding saw down here. and that's probably gonna bring it up to 2 pounds ish, somewhere around there. I imagine the Fiskar is actually not the heaviest saw, so still a little lighter, but not to the point where I'd really give a crap, to be honest. Space in a bag. So if you don't want to have your axe hanging off the side of your bag, or you want to carry something that's going to be a good chopper and a knife, and you want to put it in your go bag, but you don't want it exposed so people can see it, it's a good option. You can't put your axe in a bag. Granted, you could get hatchets you could put in a bag, but not your axe. Your knife you can put in a bag, the saw you can put in your bag, honestly. So, kind of, mm, you know. This is a big one here, and this is why I always save the good points for last for people who actually watch my videos. So thank you guys. Consider subscribing, please. Is it's designed for one-hand use. So let's be realistic here. So you're in a survival situation. Majority of the time, you're just going to wander off the trail and get lost. You're going to be actually physically okay for the most part. But what about the situations where you're flying in a plane, you crash land, or you fell out of a boat, hurt your arm somehow, you fell off a small cliff, you injured yourself, whatever. Either way, one of your arms is injured. You can't really move it. It's not broken, but it's really sprained, and you got to rest it, right? It is a hell of a lot easier to chop with the Kukri one-handed, like it's designed to do, opposed to try to one-hand my axe here. Granted, I have to choke around the 10-12 inch area here, but as you guys can tell, if I'm hitting a tree in front of me, kind of presents a danger to the family jewels. And yes, I've done that twice. I'm a slow learner, I know. But either way, that's the point, though. It's actually easier to use one-handed. And even if you go, well, just use your knife and a baton. Okay, well, what, you're going to put your knife in the tree and hit it with a baton and have it go fly off and stab you? Okay, that's cool. But either way, though, that's kind of, to me, the big key factor there. And when we do the axe versus the kukri, there's actually something with the axe I want to say medically as well. Let's see. Self-defense usage. Okay, true. Granted, I'd feel comfortable using any one of my tools here, minus the saw, because that'd be a really crappy self-defense tool. But my axe, I'd feel completely confident taking on a man or animal with this. No big deal there. Axe combat's actually really interesting to look up and practice, guys. My knife, same thing. But the kukri. Oh boy, the kukri. You all know the history of the kukri in the military, right? So, the kukri, it's quick. It's quick to change direction. It's meant to chop. It's a heavy blade. It's designed for this. That's what it's supposed to do. There's stories of people being decapitated by one blow of a kukri. Now, granted, I kind of being sadistic here, and I wanted to test this out on a deer I actually downed. It was hanging up in my garage, we were all skinning it and whatnot, and I wanted to see if I could decapitate the deer. It did not decapitate the deer because I implanted the blade roughly this far into the deer's vertebrae, and I could pull it out with ease. So you can imagine what that would do in a defense situation. Now, also, the big thing versus the axe is I could be on my back, I could pull this out, and I can thrust. That's the important thing, too. So you have the ability to chop, slash, dice, and stab with this thing, opposed to your axe and the knife. Well, the kukri does a better job because the knife you can pretty much just stab and cut. That's about it. So self-defense, yeah, I hope we never have to do anything like that, but that's something I want to point out. Self-defense is greater with the kukri. Now, some side notes. I've actually seen some videos years ago talking about the kukri and how great it is. And it talks about, well, you have one tool to maintain versus three. Okay, well, being a bushcrafter and out here doing all this stuff all the time, guys, I can tell you it's not hard to resharpen your axe. It's not. Maintain that. It's not hard to maintain your knife or your saw. Yes, it's a little more time consuming, but this is the point here, right? So I have 3 tools versus 1 to maintain. Well, if you're using that one tool for cutting things down, chopping stuff up, splitting firewood, getting rid of vegetation, doing whatever you're doing with it, right? You're going to dull it a lot faster than if I'm just cutting a few trees down for poles with my axe, and then turn around and cutting some wood to size with my saw, and then splitting it again with my axe, or if I don't have my axe with me, whittling some wood wedges with my knife here. So those are the factors too that I want people to kind of keep in mind as well. So what was the other one? This is the thing too, cutting vegetation, right? So a lot of people boast, oh, you can use your kukri to cut vegetation, but also at the same time, Do you know what exactly you're getting in contact with? Did you cut some poison ivy in that shrub of thorn bushes that you didn't see? And now you're going to go cut your meat with that knife. Obviously, most people are like, well, I'll just wash it off. Well, that's true. But washing off poison ivy oil is really hard. It's like, imagine like getting car grease on your hands. You guys know how sticky that is. That's essentially what poison ivy oil is. So just running some water and scrubbing it a few times, like I see most people do, that's not enough. It's not enough at all. And even if you're like, oh, I'll just burn it off, okay, that oil's still there. And you don't want to ingest this stuff, guys. It'll be a very bad day for you. So please don't do that. So that's kind of the pros and cons list, some side notes, my thoughts on the whole thing right there, guys. Oh, I guess some notes here, kind of end of the video here, is modifications I already talked about. I want to flatten the spine, get rid of that little horn thing. Plan is in this video, like I said before, is simply to take this, see, okay, hey, can we come out in the bush, replace the axe and the knife, and then on top of that, could we possibly start a camp with this? So kind of going with this, guys, and that's really all you really need to know is, okay, can you make feather sticks with this? How effective is that? Is there a way you can make shavings with this? How does it work with a ferrous seam rod? You know, am I comfortable using this? Am I wasting more time chopping stuff down? Does it take more hits compared to the axe? Blah, 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 guys. And that's why we're going to do like an axe versus kukri, a knife versus kukri, all this fun stuff here, guys. So we can actually finally get to the bottom of this. Okay, is a kukri a valid option for replacing two tools for one? So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. As always, stay frosty, prep up. Yeah, bless.